9 experienced hikers fled their tent in the middle of the night. Not calmly, not prepared. They ran barefoot into sub-zero temperatures. Some without coats, some without shoes, some without time. The tent was not destroyed from the outside. It was cut open from within. Their footprints showed no signs of panic. No fighting. No struggle. Just quiet, orderly steps. Leading away from shelter. Away from safety. And into certain death. Weeks later, their bodies were found scattered across the mountain. Some frozen. Some crushed internally. Some missing eyes. One missing a tongue. And when investigators tried to explain what happened, the files were sealed. Because whatever forced them out into the snow was never officially identified. The group that set out toward the northern Ural Mountains in January of 1959 were not reckless thrill-seekers. They were experienced, disciplined, prepared. Every member of the expedition had completed multiple long-distance winter treks. They understood extreme cold. They understood terrain. They understood risk. Several were engineering students. One was a war veteran. All were trained to survive conditions that would kill the unprepared within hours. Their leader was a 23-year-old engineering student named Igor Dyatlov. A quiet, methodical, respected. The route they chose was difficult, but not impossible. It was rated at the highest difficulty level available at the time. But that rating was meant to test endurance, not invite deaths. They packed carefully. They logged their progress. They joked in their journals. Nothing in their writing suggested fear. Nothing suggested doubt. On January 23rd, the group boarded a train and headed north. Photographs taken during the journey show smiling faces, playful moments, confidence. They expected hardship. They expected cold. They did not expect whatever would meet them on that mountain. One hiker turned back early due to illness. That decision saved his life. The remaining 9 continued forward. And for the next several days, they documented everything. Weather conditions, distances traveled, small frustrations, small victories. They were careful. They were calm. They were doing everything right. On February 1st, they made a decision that would later become one of the most heavily debated details of the entire case. Instead of descending to safer ground, they pitched their tent on the open slope of a mountain known locally as Kalat Siekal. Translated loosely, the name means Dead Mountain. At the time, it didn't seem ominous. To them, it was simply a strategic choice. They wanted to save time. They wanted to maintain altitude. They set up camp as the sun faded. They cooked. They ate. They laughed. And sometime after darkness fell, everything changed. Nothing more was ever written in their journals. No warning. No final entry. No explanation. The next recorded action would not be words. It would be a cut through canvas. By the afternoon of February 1st, the weather had begun to change. The wind grew sharper. Visibility dropped. The temperature fell further below zero. Nothing unusual for experienced hikers. But what happened next would later become one of the most debated decisions in the entire Dyatlov Pass case. Instead of descending into the forest for shelter, the group chose to stop on the open slope. There were trees below them. Protection from wind. Natural cover. But they didn't go down. They stayed where they were. At first glance, the decision makes some sense. Descending would mean losing altitude they would have to regain the next day. Staying on the slope would save time and energy. Experienced hikers sometimes make that choice. But here what makes this different. This slope offered no natural protection. No trees. No rock cover. Only open snow and wind. And the group knew this. They had discussed shelter options earlier in the day. They had the experience to understand the risks. Yet they still pitched the tent on the mountain's shoulder. The location wasn't random. It sat just below the crest of the slope. Exposed but not at the very top. Almost as if they wanted to stay close to the ridge, but not be seen from it. That detail would later trouble investigators. They cut a platform into the snow. They anchored the tent carefully. They reinforced it against the wind. This wasn't a panicked camp. It was deliberate. Inside the tent, the mood appeared normal. Their final photographs show calm faces. Their final journal entries mention routine frustrations. Nothing about fear. Nothing about urgency. They cooked dinner. They shared food. They joked. One photo shows a faint smile. This matters because it means whatever happened next was not anticipated. Night fell quickly. Outside, the wind intensified. Snow moved sideways across the slope. Inside the tent, they would have been warm, protected, together. There was no reason to leave. And yet, at some point during the night, every single one of them did. Not one at a time. Not gradually. All of them's. The tent was later found partially collapsed, still standing. No signs of an avalanche burying it. No evidence of a struggle inside. Their boots were still lined up near the entrance. Their coats were left behind, which tells us something chilling. They didn't leave because they wanted to. They left because they believed they had to. And whatever forced that decision was strong enough to override instinct, training, and survival itself. Because trained hikers do not abandon shelter in a blizzard. Not barefoot. Not half-dressed. Not together. Unless staying inside felt more dangerous than stepping into the snow. Their footprints told the rest of the story. They moved downhill in a line. Not running. Not chaotic. Measured steps. As if they were leaving under control. But without time. No one turned back. No one returned for supplies. No one went for help. The moment they left that tent, the outcome was already sealed. And that brings us to the most unsettling question of this chapter. What happened inside that tent? That made 9 experienced hikers believe the open mountain was safer than where they stood. Because in the next chapter, we'll follow those footprints and discover what happened after they stepped into the dark. Whatever happened inside the tent did not unfold slowly. It didn't build over hours. It didn't give them time to debate. It forced a decision. And that decision came fast. Sometime after nightfall, something changed inside the tent. The temperature outside had dropped to lethal levels. The wind screamed across the slope. Snow pressed against the canvas walls. Inside, they would have been warm, protected, alive. And yet, they didn't exit through the entrance. They cut their way out. Investigators later confirmed the tent had been slashed from the inside. Long, deliberate cuts. Not tears. Not damage from outside forces. Cuts made by human hands. That detail matters. Because it means whatever they perceived was inside with them. Or at least felt closer than the exit. Think about that moment. 9 people in a confined space. Darkness. Wind shaking the tent. Cold pressing in. Someone reaches for a blade. Not to defend. Not to fight. To escape. They didn't stop to put on boots. They didn't grab coats. They didn't collect supplies. Which tells us something terrifying. They believed there was no time. And worse, they believed staying was more dangerous than the cold. The first footprints appeared just outside the tent. They are calm. No signs of running. No scattered movement. They walk downhill together. Bare feet in the snow. Socks soaked instantly. Skin freezing within minutes. Still, they keep going. This is where most explanations fall apart. Because panic looks chaotic. Fear looks disordered. But these footprints were orderly. As if they were leaving under instruction. Or under agreement. They moved toward the tree line. Toward shelter. Toward the forest. But they didn't make it far. Near the edge of the woods, investigators found the remains of a small fire. 2 bodies lay nearby. Nearly naked. Hands burned from trying to keep warm. Branches broken high above the ground. As if someone had climbed a tree. To look back. Or to escape something below. Those 2 were the first to die. Not instantly. Slowly. From exposure. Further uphill, 3 more bodies were found. Between the forest and the tent. As if they were trying to return. Their positions tell a story without words. They turned back. But they didn't make it. The last 4 were discovered months later. Buried deep under snow in a ravine. Their injuries were different. Severe internal trauma. Crushed ribs. Skull fractures. Injuries comparable to a high-impact collision. But with no external wounds. No signs of a fall. No evidence of violence. One was missing her tongue. Another had no eyes. Soft tissue gone. Removed by something. Or by time. Or by conditions no one could agree on. Investigators were left with fragments of a night they could never fully reconstruct. Why did the group split? Why did some stay together? Why did some try to go back? Why did some suffer injuries that made no sense in that environment? The weather alone couldn't explain it. An avalanche was considered. But the evidence didn't match. No debris. No burial of the tent. No terrain consistent with a slide. And the footprints remained visible. Undisturbed. The official timeline began to collapse. Because nothing about this night followed survival logic. Not the exit. Not the movement. Not the injuries. What haunted investigators most was this. Whatever drove them out of the tent did not chase them. There were no signs of pursuit. No second set of footprints. No evidence of struggle beyond the cold itself. Which means the fear wasn't behind them. It was with them, or around them, or inside their own perception. And yet, they all responded the same way. They left together, at the same time, in the same direction. That level of coordination under stress is rare. It suggests something shared, something sudden, something that made all 9 believe escape was necessary. Immediately, by the time the mountain went quiet again, 9 people were already dead. Not from a single blow, not from a single mistake, but from a sequence of decisions forced by something no one could name. In the next chapter, we'll look at what the bodies revealed and why the injuries only deepened the mystery. Because what happened after they fled the tent was even harder to explain than why they left it. When search teams finally reached the area weeks later, they were not prepared for what they found. The mountain had kept its secret well. Snow covered everything. Wind erased tracks. Time distorted the scene. What remained were fragments of a story that refused to align. The first bodies were found near the tree line. 2 hikers lying face down in the snow beneath a tall cedar. Their hands were blackened, skin burned, fingers raw. They had built a small fire. Not a campfire. A desperate one. Branches above them were broken, snapped high up the trunk. Someone had climbed that tree. Not to hide. Not to rest. But to see. To look back toward the slope. These 2 were barely clothed. One wore only underwear. The other a torn shirt. Their clothes were later found on other bodies, which tells us something grim. The living took clothing from the dead, not out of disrespect, but out of necessity. The cause of death for both was listed as hypothermia. But hypothermia doesn't explain the burns on their hands. It doesn't explain why one tried to climb a tree in freezing darkness. It doesn't explain why they stayed there instead of returning together. Further uphill, 3 more bodies were discovered, scattered between the forest and the tent. Their positions were deliberate. One face down, one on his side, one partially upright, frozen mid-motion. All 3 were oriented toward the tent. They were going back. These were not random collapses. They were attempts. Attempts to return to shelter. Attempts that failed. The injuries on these bodies were inconsistent. Minor bruising. Scratches. Signs of exposure. Nothing fatal on its own, except the cold. But the final group changed everything. 4 hikers were found months later, deep in a ravine, buried under meters of snow. Their injuries were catastrophic. Crushed ribs, severe skull fractures, massive internal trauma. The kind of injuries you'd expect from a car crash or a fall from a great height. But there were no external wounds, no broken skin, no bleeding consistent with impact. Their bodies looked intact, as if the damage had come from inside. One woman was missing her tongue. Another had no eyes. Soft tissue gone. Official explanations pointed to animals. But the cuts were clean. Too clean. And other soft tissue remained untouched. Investigators struggled to explain the ravine. There were no clear signs of a fall. No slope steep enough to generate that force. No evidence of an avalanche. And yet 4 people died there violently. Then came the radiation. Traces of radiation were detected on some clothing. Not enough to kill. Not enough to explain death. But enough to be noted. Enough to raise questions no one wanted to answer. The clothing itself told another story. Some wore items that belonged to others. Layers redistributed. An unconscious triage. They had tried to survive. They had adapted. They had thought. And then there were the faces. Some reports described expressions frozen in place. Not terror. Not agony. But confusion. As if they didn't understand what was happening to them. Official conclusions began to stretch. Hypothermia. Accident. Unknown force. Words used to close a case. Not explain it. Because no single cause could account for all the injuries. Exposure couldn't crush ribs. A fall couldn't explain orderly footprints. Animals couldn't explain missing tissue without disturbance. Radiation couldn't explain timing. Each explanation fixed one problem and created 3 more. Investigators were left with bodies that contradicted each other. Some died slowly. Some died violently. Some tried to return. Some stayed behind. But all of them fled the tent together. That is the lie the bodies told. They told investigators that whatever happened was not one event. It was a chain. A sequence. A night that changed shape as it unfolded. And the most disturbing realization came last. None of the injuries explained why they left the tent in the first place. In the next chapter, we'll look at the investigation itself and why the official explanation satisfied no one. Because the truth wasn't just buried under snow. It was buried in paperwork. When the bodies were finally recovered, the investigation should have intensified. Instead, it narrowed. Questions were asked, but only briefly. Leads were noted, but not followed. And explanations were offered before the evidence could fully challenge them. From the beginning, the case made authorities uncomfortable. There was no crime scene in the traditional sense. No weapons. No suspect. No single moment of violence. Just 9 dead hikers, spread across a mountainside, with injuries that didn't belong together. That kind of case doesn't fit easily into reports. Officials began framing the incident as an accident, a tragic chain of natural events. Hypothermia became the anchor explanation, the thread holding everything else together. But hypothermia alone could not explain crushed ribs, or skull fractures, or missing soft tissue, or radiation on clothing. So the explanation stretched. The phrase "unknown compelling force" entered the official record. A rare admission, and a dangerous one, because it acknowledged something had acted on the group, without naming what it was. And once that phrase appeared, the tone of the investigation shifted. Witness statements were summarized, not explored. Search records were shortened. Photographs were classified. Details that raised more questions than answers were quietly minimized. Local Mansi people were briefly investigated, then dismissed. No evidence tied them to the deaths, and no motive made sense. The terrain itself was blamed next, but the mountain offered no clear mechanism. No avalanche damage, no massive slide, no terrain collapse. The slope remained intact. Military involvement was denied, quickly and firmly. Despite reports of strange lights in the sky, despite nearby testing areas, despite unexplained radiation, those details were labeled irrelevant, coincidental, unverified. Families asked questions. Why were internal injuries so severe, but skin mostly unbroken? Why were some bodies found months later, in a ravine no one had thoroughly searched? Why did the timeline feel incomplete? They received no clear answers. Within weeks, the case was officially closed. Not solved. Not explained. Just closed. The final report concluded that the hikers died due to exposure, caused by an unknown force. No follow-up investigations were ordered. No new searches conducted. No deeper analysis released. Behind the scenes, some investigators disagreed. They knew the evidence didn't align cleanly. They knew the injuries told different stories. But disagreement never made it into the final paperwork. In the political climate of the time, certainty was preferred over confusion. Unanswered questions were dangerous. Mystery suggested loss of control. So the case was sealed. Not with resolution, but with silence. Files were archived. Photographs locked away. The mountain was left alone. And slowly, the Dyatlov Pass Incident became something people spoke about carefully, if at all. But silence doesn't erase facts. It only delays them. Because the evidence never changed. Only the willingness to confront it did. And the most unsettling part of the investigation isn't what it concluded. It's what it avoided. The possibility that whatever happened that night was not something authorities could explain, or contain, or safely acknowledge. In the next chapter, we'll examine the theories that emerged once official explanations failed, and why none of them fully resolved the fear left behind. Because some questions don't disappear when a case is closed. They wait. Once the official investigation ended, the questions didn't. They multiplied. And because no single explanation could account for every detail, theories began to surface. Quietly at first, then louder, then impossible to ignore. The most accepted explanation was an avalanche. It was clean, simple, and reassuring. A sudden collapse of snow. Panic inside the tent. A desperate escape. But the evidence resisted that narrative. The tent was still standing. Not buried. Not crushed. The slope angle was wrong. Footprints remained visible for weeks. Undisturbed. Leading away in calm, measured lines. An avalanche does not leave calm footprints. Another theory focused on katabatic winds. Sudden powerful gusts, capable of creating disorienting pressure and sound. A force strong enough to cause fear. Confusion. Even panic. But this too fell apart under scrutiny. There was no evidence of structural damage to the tent. No signs the wind was strong enough to produce such terror. And even disorientation does not explain internal injuries, or missing tissue, or radiation. Then came infrasound. Low-frequency sound waves, produced by wind interacting with the mountain's shape. Sound below the threshold of hearing, but capable of causing anxiety, nausea, irrational fear. It was a compelling idea. But again, it explained only the fear, not the aftermath. Infrasound cannot crush ribs, or fracture skulls, or selectively remove soft tissue. Military testing entered the conversation next. Nearby facilities, classified activity, reports of glowing orbs in the sky. Some hikers' clothing tested positive for radiation. Not enough to kill, but enough to notice. But no documentation surfaced. No tests were admitted. No evidence was released. The theory lingered in shadows. Never confirmed. Never disproven. Then there were the lights. Multiple witnesses reported seeing strange orange spheres in the sky that night. Moving silently. Hovering. Disappearing. The reports were logged. Then dismissed. Officially unrelated. Unofficially. Never forgotten. More disturbing theories followed. That the hikers encountered something they didn't understand. Something environmental. Something atmospheric. Something rare. A natural phenomenon unknown at the time. Or something known, but not openly discussed. Some suggested human involvement. Not local people. Not attackers. But accidental exposure. Unintended consequences. A force meant to test, not kill. But human involvement would leave signs. And none were found. No foreign footprints. No weapons. No struggle. And then there is the theory no one likes to say out loud. The idea that whatever happened was not hostile, that the hikers were not attacked, that they reacted to something they perceived as an overwhelming threat, but one that never followed them, because nothing chased them, nothing pursued, nothing left traces behind them in the snow, which raises a terrifying possibility that the danger wasn't behind them. It was around them, or above them, or inside their own senses. Every theory explains one piece, and fails another. Avalanche explains urgency, but not injuries. Infrasound explains fear, but not deaths. Military testing explains secrecy, but not the calm. Natural causes explain exposure, but not the violence inside their bodies. The Dyatlov Pass Incident exists in the space between explanations, where logic breaks down, where certainty becomes impossible. And that is why these theories refuse to die. Because none of them fully answer the same question. What made 9 experienced hikers believe that cutting their way out of a tent and stepping barefoot into a frozen mountainside was the safest choice they had. In the final chapter, we'll confront what this case ultimately represents, not just as a mystery, but as a reminder that some events resist understanding and some truths never surface, no matter how badly we want them to. Long after the investigation ended, the mountain remained. Snow still gathers on its slopes. Wind still carves the same paths through the ice. And silence still settles there faster than anywhere else. But Dyatlov Pass is no longer just a place. It is a memory the landscape refuses to forget. Nothing marks the exact spot where the tent once stood. No sign. No warning. No trace that 9 people made their final decision there. Only snow. And space. And the feeling that something once went terribly wrong. Rescue teams eventually left. Files were closed. And official explanations were filed away. But the case never truly ended. It followed the families home. It followed investigators into retirement. And it followed the public into decades of unanswered questions. The hikers were not reckless. They were trained, experienced, disciplined. People who trusted their judgment and trusted each other, which is what makes their final decision so unsettling. Because they all agreed. Whatever happened that night, it convinced 9 intelligent, capable people that staying inside their tent was more dangerous than stepping into a frozen wilderness with no protection. That belief alone is terrifying. Some say the mountain itself was responsible, that nature turned hostile without warning. Others say the truth was hidden, buried under paperwork, lost to secrecy and fear. And some believe the answer doesn't fit any category we're comfortable with. Because the Dyatlov Pass incident doesn't behave like a crime. It doesn't behave like an accident. And it doesn't behave like a simple tragedy. It behaves like a warning without a message. Even today, climbers avoid the area. Locals speak of it carefully, often lowering their voices, as if the mountain is still listening. They don't say the pass is cursed. They say it's unfinished. The photographs remain. The journals remain. The footprints remain frozen in time. And yet the moment that mattered most, the moment that forced them out into the snow, is still missing. Perhaps the most haunting part of this story is not how they died, but how calmly they acted in the face of something we still cannot name. No screaming recorded. No struggle documented. No chaos preserved. Only orders, movement, and silence. Dyatlov Pass reminds us of something deeply uncomfortable. That not every mystery bends toward explanation. And not every truth survives investigation. Some events leave behind only fragments and demand that we sit with uncertainty. And maybe that is why this case still haunts us. Because if 9 people could face something unknown and agree without hesitation to flee into the cold together, then the question isn't just what happened to them. It's what they believed was happening. Thank you for watching Dark Past. If this story stayed with you, take a moment to like the video. Share it with someone who thinks they know this case. And leave a comment with what you believe forced them out into the snow. Subscribe for the next episode, because the next file we open was never meant to be reopened. And some stories don't fade with time. They wait.